Hi, my name is Jordan. I am a special education teacher from the UK. I share my passion for everything communication, sensory regulation and fun lesson ideas for my classroom of disabled pupils aged 4 to 11. Each week, I am joined by experts in the field, answering your questions and sharing our knowledge and experience working alongside our beautiful young people. Let's get started. Everybody, my name is Jordan and I am a special education teacher and I teach autistic and PMLD students aged 4 to 11 in an area resource base in Cornwall. And today we are being joined by an autism parent who's also autistic herself. And I thought it would be a really good insight because lots of us are teachers and half of us are parents. So it would be a really good insight to have a parent on here to talk about her experience going through the diagnosis process for her child, and also her child is starting special school in September as well in early years, so kind of works both ways. Hopefully she's going to be asking us teachers questions about what to expect and how maybe she can best support her child and the transition process and all of that kind of thing, but also us asking her how we can be the most and best support to parents either going through diagnosis or starting school, parents, whatever. So it's all about that kind of collaboration because it's so important, isn't it? It's crucial actually. The relationship between parent or professional and parent is so crucial to the success of any child. So I'm going to bring Laura on now. Hi Laura.
Hello, it's so nice to meet you.
Thank you so I'm so pleased you're here. I adore everything you share. You are just, it's so amazing. The parents that I work with in my school, online and offline, are just the most amazing. But obviously, like, you don't choose this. Like, I've chosen to invest my life in autism, and it just feels like you have just dived straight in with like the life you've been given, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's what it feels like for the sort of after diagnosis, but obviously also in the time building up. You know, I knew Ethan was autistic from one, maybe even less than. I knew nothing about autism, or I didn't think I did. I knew, so for such a long period of time before your child is actually diagnosed. And I think actually
so was it you that initially saw it? It wasn't a paediatrician or it wasn't a GP or professional, it was you that knew?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew. Ethan didn't babble at all. He was basically sort of silent. We always say we hear, like, I doubt they are newborn, but I hear newborn babies saying things or babbling, and I think, oh, I've never heard that.
Right.
I've never heard that from Ethan. He also did the sort of hand flapping, and is who the diagnostic criteria is written for, really.
He ticks a lot of the boxes. Yeah. Okay.
But we still had, our health visitor said, oh, he's not, he's a boy, boys speak late, boys are lazy, we had all of that.
Once you had that, or like building up to one?
Building up to, or built sort of from one onwards, even when we're saying, he hasn't said anything. And things like you can only get referred to speech and language from 2, I think it is. So we're like, okay, if the waiting list is years long, can't he
Let's get on it.
Now sort of thing, but obviously that's...
So that's not a thing, you can't get on it earlier than that?
We got on it pretty quickly. I can't remember a huge amount of it, which probably tells you what
that's right. Also, there's so much. Yeah.
And then obviously you kind of think, oh, when they've got diagnosed, great, all this support that I keep being told about will appear. And obviously we all know it doesn't, for sort of one reason or another.
Yeah, some get sent out with a leaflet, some don't even get that. Some get an email saying, we agree that your child is autistic, and there's no other information.
But I think that you're in such a place, because I always say that I didn't get a leaflet or anything. And I've been speaking to Ethan's paediatrician a little bit about the things that I'm doing, and she sort of apologised for that and said that I think you are kind of emailed something. But obviously when you're told your child is autistic, even though I knew, obviously it's such a huge life-changing thing. I don't know what I was emailed, but I'm not going to be clicking on it and reading pages and pages of stuff. you know, you're not in the
in
right...
scientific professional jargon that just feels really scientific and scary, doesn't it? It all feels so. Obviously, it doesn't change the child you have. Like, he's always been autistic before the email and after the email. I can imagine seeing a wall of words that look really medical. Could be the worst thing to help you at that moment.
And however much you know, still kind of seeing it in black and white written down is still a sort of a huge thing. And even when we knew, and then we're like, right, we need to ask nursery if they think he is. We need to ask a speech and language therapist. They said yes, you know, instantly. Even then, it's all still a shock, even though you know.
Of course it is. I've just been through it with a friend and colleague, actually, and everyone around her was saying, he is, he is, I have no doubt he is. And even if it comes back that he isn't, we will go again because he is. Like, she was hearing this all the time. She was like, I know, but what, you know, what if, you know, because it's just that niggle in the back of my mind. What if I'm just seeing it? What if, you know, what that health visitor said is true? And, you know, all those kind of things go through your head. But then seeing it in black and white, you know, whether in a letter or an email, must feel 50% validation of course I know my son, but also 50% this is our life now. Like, this is it. This is, I was right. This is what it is.
And you're just thrown into this world which you have no understanding of. At the time, you feel like you're the only family going through it, which is why, you know, before I set up this account, Instagram had such a powerful impact on me. Like, Instagram is where I heard about AAC, like gestalt language processing, and just knowing that other families live our life, you know.
Because then you can kind of take, you can kind of take control a little bit, and maybe also a few years of wondering. I feel like social media is an incredibly powerful tool when used that way, because it's social and you can tap into all the experts that have years of referrals to wait for them, and yet you can tap into their videos and get little snippets of information to piece together. It's incredibly powerful.
And I think as well, I could also skip a few years. And obviously every day isn't brilliant, but you know, most days are. And I think I've skipped a few years in terms of the why me, the how is this our life kind of feeling.
Because that's really common. And that is okay also. If there's a parent watching this thinking, actually, I am grieving, I am. I've known parents that have grieved for a good 5, 6, 7 years for the child. They adore their child, they love their child, there's absolutely no judgment, but they are grieving the child and the life that they thought they were going to have. And I do think that is nothing wrong with that, and that is absolutely okay. And I never hear that and think less of them.
No.
And I never also think that less of their love for their child either. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that.
Definitely.
But do I hope that they come to terms with the child they have? Absolutely. Eventually, with support. So it's amazing to hear that. Because how long ago was he diagnosed?
Sort of 18 months or so ago.
Within 18 months, you've gotten to a point that not only are you going for it, you're in speech and language, aren't you? You've had referrals for that, and he's doing amazing with his AAC.
Something I saw on Instagram very early on, and I never say it sort of very well. I never say it like she said it, but it's basically she kind of had a moment of just realizing this is our life. This is our life forever. You know, we don't know what the future holds. There's going to be lots of sort of sad in our life. But actually, if sadness is all I see, that's all I'm going to have. And there's plenty of sadness that you can grab, isn't there, all the time? You know, and from little bits of sadness, like Ethan breaks a phone for a pastime, and, you know, little things like that. Or you can just, and obviously it's not this simple, but you can just try and kind of flip it a bit and think, actually, I could also grab the joy and grab the positives as frequently as you're looking for the sadness. Just, I think, trying to embrace that. And obviously that varies so much depending on if you're poorly yourself or if you slept badly the night before, and obviously meds have had dips in and out.
About support, family support, and the support network you have around you, whether you've got a partner or good friendship groups or family. I'm sure that must make a difference in your ability to manage and cope with those initial years as well. I'm sure.
Yeah, and me and my partner, we run our own business, so we work from home primarily. Ethan goes to a specialist nursery, but only for sort of 11 hours a week. So he, we drop him off and he's back straight away. Yeah, because we work from home, because we're our own boss, so we're not very nice bosses to ourselves, as you never are. But we have got a bit of the time. So with Ethan's AAC, we can model that to him in the day.
And that is a privilege, I suppose, isn't it? That some families don't have, and I think it's worth acknowledging that as well. That some families don't have that privilege. Before I go on to talk about schools, I'd love to talk about as we're talking about early diagnosis, the leaflets that you have created, because I think it is so powerful, the fact that it has come from a parent, and actually really important that it has come from a parent. So I don't know if you want to explain a little bit about that, because there might be people watching this. There's 65 people watching, so I'm sure there are people that will benefit from getting any access to your leaflets, either for other people or for themselves.
Yeah, and I'd happily post it to anybody or email it. So basically, I've designed the flyer that I needed 18 months ago. And my dream for it is it to be in the paediatrician's drawer, to be in the health visitor's drawer. It's not for displaying, it's not for putting on a poster board. It's for if, when the parent first says, I think my child is autistic, and they might be crying, they might be upset, they're going through a really hard time, and say, this is what you need. And on it, so I've got a version that's locally to where I live and a national version, and there's sort of charities to support. There's some of my experience. So something that I put on there is that you don't need to learn everything on day one. My personality is, I need to learn, be an expert on Macedon, just on AOC. And I sort of drove myself a bit kind of crazy. And actually, you are the expert on your child. And that's kind of all. Like some Instagram accounts to follow, some bits of advice, like when you're ready, look into objects of reference and total communication environment and Gestalt and things like that, and just giving people hopefully just a bit of hope and just a bit of support. I've got a few accounts to follow on Instagram, so just go and see that there's other families like you, read that book, do a little bit of research, and it's kind of bright and colourful. It's almost sort of branding and just and it's accessible, that people can read there and then.
Accessible hope, isn't it? That they're not alone, and that there is something they can do about it, and almost like, so they don't have to go seeking for it and possibly finding maybe the wrong thing potentially, because there are some odd practices out there. It's almost like this is okay, like I'm a parent too, this is what helped me, it might help you, you're not alone. It's a hug almost, isn't it?
And that I share on it, and I don't think they do it anymore, which is such a shame, but Scope, the charity, have like a navigator service for me 18 months ago, and I spoke to this lady that she had cerebral palsy, her sister was autistic, she understood, and she just let me come at it with everything I was feeling and all my advice. And I've put that on there, and I share on my account that I go to therapy and I'm in talking therapy, and so it's okay that you need all this, and it's completely fine to ask for help and say, actually, I'm struggling.
Because the reality is that being a parent of a disabled child means you have to fight often for help and ask for help. That's almost maybe the hardest bit, is coming to terms with, I'm going to need other people in my life to help me bring up my child, and that's part of the grieving process as well. Is you might think you're going to be the parent that's sitting at the dining room table working through their homework with their child, and you could be that person, and actually I need other professionals to help my child communicate with me, and I need other professionals to help my child be regulated, and I guess that is part of the process, is that professionals are going to be in your life, I suppose.
And like with this sort of grieving process, like as I said, I'm sort of a lot better now, but I remember one thing that always stood out for me is that I did a music degree and I'm a singer, and I thought, when I have a child, I'll teach them the piano and we'll be singing like The Greatest Showman or doing whatever. And then I remember when Ethan, and this is very stereotypical, but when I found out Ethan was a boy, I was like, oh no, I hope he likes singing. And then obviously, I now have a
because in your wildest dreams that would be the worst thing.
Exactly. Boys are the worst. And then so I have that, and you know, there are always, it's sort of, it stings now rather than kind of completely, you know, setting up camp there and sort of living there. But
and people call it grief. People call it grief for a reason. Like you can go through the stages of grief in some way.
Yeah, and I'm also very aware that there's probably triggers and grief and hard things that I haven't even thought about yet, sort of thing. And I think that's, you know, for teachers at specialist schools, and I'm sure you're brilliant, and just kind of knowing that actually lots of the parents you meet are in this space, and actually you don't know what trigger they've had that day or what's kind of happened,
or even what stage they're at in their coming to terms with their child. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. I've worked with some 14-year-olds 10 years ago, and whose parents very much still had not come to terms that their child was autistic. And that was made very, very clear. And just don't assume, I suppose, just because their child isn't 4 or 5 or 3, or even if they have even if they were diagnosed 10 years ago, don't necessarily assume that they're at the same stage as you, or other parents in your class, I suppose, as teacher and parent. And their feelings, whatever they are valid.
Definitely. And like, you know, I shared a lot on my account of like our fight that we had to get Ethan into specialist school, and we won or whatever. We got the specialist school named like on the deadline day. But I also have been very open with the fact that if we didn't get it and we had to go to tribunal, well, we were already at peak stress, peak illness, peak fight. We'd done everything. You know, I don't know. And obviously, we would have downed everything to fight for Ethan. But, you know, we both run our own business, but we might have to stop our business. And
it comes at a cost, a financial cost, an emotional cost, a family relationship cost. It's huge. It's huge.
And then I probably wouldn't have done my flyers. You know, I wouldn't be doing this account. I wouldn't be advocating. You know, and I'm obviously, as you said, every parent you meet is on a completely different journey, a completely different path, and just never making assumptions of sort of where people are.
I suppose just like they say, you meet one autistic child and you've met one autistic child. You meet one parent of an autistic child, you've met one parent. Like
definitely.
It's as unique as the child themselves. Why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't that be the case?
Definitely.
But I think maybe for teachers, from my point of view, because I've been doing it for 15 years, I've worked with 400 autistic children, I've kind of become blind to the fact it's so normalised for me. I've kind of become delusioned in a way that biting, hitting, chewing, shaking, flapping, it's just part of my day. And I don't think that's always helpful, actually, because sometimes it's so normalised that I forget that where a parent might be at with that, because it's new for them, it's brand new, it's scary and it's unknown, and they don't know what will happen next. And, you know, it's all those feelings, and I find it really hard to relate, actually, because I'm like, oh, that's right. Like I had a TA the other day, it was like, I haven't ever changed a nappy, and they looked terrified, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like I changed it every day, like what? And it's like, I need to remember that. I need to remember that the average person hasn't changed the nappy of an 11-year-old, and I need to guide them through that as if it was the first time. And I think sometimes I think that's a fault of mine. I'm kind of become disillusioned in a way, and I've kind of become blind to it, because sometimes I go into mainstream classes or I hang out with my nephews who are neurotypical, and I'm blown away because it's not my normal. Is my special ed class. Like that is my normal. What is normal anyway? That is my normal. That's my baseline. Is that so? Sometimes I'm like, oh wow, like I didn't expect that voice to come out with this little one or whatever. Just because I'm not used to it.
Definitely.
But then that doesn't always make me helpful when parents of newly diagnosed children come to me, because I just see this gorgeous child that to me would fit perfectly into my class and are perfect, and I've struggled to relate on that.
I think it's good that you recognise that in the first place. That is helpful, And then I guess, you know, you mentioned the sort of biting and the scratching and things, and that's something that Ethan, Touchwood, does a lot less of since his ASC. But obviously, that's not very nice as a parent, having that kind of as part of your day to day. And I can imagine that might be something that you've become a bit.
Exactly, and it comes
that,
with a lot of fear,
happened.
doesn't it, for the future? You know, God, they're only little now. Like, what about when they're 50? I think there is a lot of fear for the future, actually, and often in EHCP reviews. So for those that don't know, those within EHCP have a annual meeting where the paperwork gets reviewed. So there, it includes social care stuff, education stuff. It's basically a whole plan about everyone around that child and targets for them and what we're all working on together. And it's reviewed every year, and it makes up part of their budget and schooling and everything, isn't it? Taxis, all sorts, it's all in there. And usually the hardest question to ask parents is, what's your hope for the future for them? And it always feels really heavy because in the early days, I think it's heavy because their hope is different. They've got two types of hope. They've got maybe like unrealistic hope, which they're still maybe clinging on to a little bit. And then they've got realistic hope, which is happy, safe, healthy, loved, as independent as they can be. They're often things I hear, friends, like equal relationships. I hear lots of those things.
That's like Ethan's, I think.
Yeah, but I think in the back of their mind, I think why it feels so heavy and why it kind of cuts the air in the meeting is because actually in the back of their mind, their hopes are marriage, relationships, grandchildren, you know, living independently, having a job, you know, and I think, and I've had conversation with 4-year-old parents with 4-year-olds and parents with 19-year-olds, and it still hurts. It just seems to cut that question.
It does cut the question out, but also it's, as we said at the start, you're just kind of thrown into this world, and actually you might not have even thought too far ahead by then. But also for us, and I think is the case for lots of other autistic children, Ethan is sort of developing all the time and changing all the time. So you kind of make peace with one thing, and then something happens, and you're like, maybe he can do this, and obviously you want to keep the full sort of hope there.
Because you don't want to limit them.
Yeah, and it's
who's to say they can't.
Yeah, and I always say with Ethan, I've always said it, but especially now he's got his ASC and he's just flying with it, that Ethan can do, and I always use NASA as an example for some reason, but that Ethan could work anywhere and he can communicate via his ASC. You know, he could write a novel on his ASC. He can say everything he wants to. He can do everything he wants to, and we will support him anyway. You know, he loves music and singing and stuff at the moment, but we're sort of waiting for that real special interest to pop up, and we will kind of fly with it. And
how interesting that he loves music and singing. Isn't that
exactly
wonderful?
Yeah.
Isn't that just wonderful?
Yeah.
That you can share that together through his AAC and through his joy of
and he loves he does love playing the piano with his hands and by sitting on it and doing all sorts, but you know, he loves it. And like his speech language therapist has commented, like when we sing or she sings, he just sort of stops in his tracks and he listens. So yeah, like I haven't actually thought that, like I'm still getting that, aren't I, the music.
You are, absolutely. I saw you adding loads of like different songs and phrases to his AAC, and that's a shared interest, isn't it? Is your singing and music? Yeah, because it's obviously it's genetic. It's in there, right? It's and also because it's obviously around him in his home, so that is important to you guys as a family. I think that's really wonderful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, which is great.
And I suppose every parent doesn't know what the future holds.
Exactly.
It's just, I think when your child is diagnosed, sometimes professionals almost like that pressure is put on you to think about it or to plan for it. Like, for example, the benefit of him going to a special school, I can imagine, is that he's there till he is, what, 19?
I think it's 18.
18, yeah. So that would, I'm sure, would have come as part of the benefit. Because there's not as many transitions and, you know, they'll know him and it can be smooth and all of those kind of things. Like, I can imagine that was part of the benefit. And I feel like other parents choosing an EYFS class for their children are thinking about what happens when they're 18.
Exactly. Yes, are we better prepared?
Yeah.
But like choosing a specialist school was a difficult thing as well, because a school, we were moving house, we were going out of county for this specialist school, and they rejected Ethan and said they couldn't meet his needs, and they said he was too sort of able to go there, because we put on his ASC that he can count, and he knows his colours and he knows his numbers, which is true.
Right.
So then we were thinking, obviously we have no idea what we're doing, so we're then thinking, well, is that wrong? Do we need to be looking at other situations? But then a specialist school that is the same as the school that rejected Ethan said yes and welcomed him with open arms, which is the one he's going to. But there's just so much. Don't know if we'll ever.
Depends what the cohort is. Like, if it's all comparative, right? Like, who says more or less?
Exactly,
I guess it depends on like the rest of the group they're getting, I suppose. Like, would he fit into the cohort that they've got? And I guess that changes every year. I guess it's just luck a lot of the time.
Exactly, and obviously that shouldn't be, but that's a whole different conversation, isn't it? But yeah, so then, and I remember when I first started realising Ethan would need a specialist school, for some reason, and I don't know why I was doing it, but I think it was helping me. I would always say, but he can still do GCSEs, which I assume is true in some, but isn't true in the sort of
because it was true in my special provision that I was in 10 years ago. I mean, special education is amazing because it's so individualised. If a child, we did have a few, if a child is making progress in a subject and looks like they could get a qualification in it, I don't know any school that wouldn't just apply for that one child to do that qualification, whether that's a dance certificate, whether that's a swim certificate, whether that's a GCSE. I've never worked in a school that wouldn't, even if it's just one child, put them through an exam that they feel like they would do, because, well, selfishly it makes the school look good, but also on an individual level, like, I don't understand why you wouldn't. No. So even if they're not doing it now, there is no reason why, if your child is ready for whatever it is, that subject or whatever. And also, I mean, homeschooled parents can do it themselves. Put their child through that anyway. So even if they don't, you can. And that's
what I always used to say. I don't know why I remember it, but I remember this like 90-year-old man on BBC News had got his maths GCSE and he decided to do it. Like, you can do anything. We can do, me and my partner are both trained teachers and we left after a year, but we can do that. And that's really great to kind of hear you say that. And I know we discussed a bit just how you work to support kind of all the different needs. And I think Ethan, on one hand, he's very high needs in terms of non-speaking. He's very sensory seeking, and he doesn't sit still, and he's kind of here, there, and everywhere. But he can also, he's also clever. And
it sounds like his mathematical understanding is actually pretty good.
He can read now. We always used to say we think Ethan can read, but actually since his AAC, we've started saying he can read because he's fun.
Because are you not even modelling some words, and yet he's choosing them?
Yeah, like he loves Bing. Like, Bing is his favourite thing in the whole world.
You know what, that's so common for Gestalt language processing.
Yeah, because he's so emotive, isn't he, Bing?
And he seems to go through every situation that actually matters to a child.
Yeah.
Which is so, because the kids I work with, the one I've worked with today especially, speak through Bing.
Amazing.
He's still in a referral for an AAC, it's 11.
Okay, cool.
But he works with BBC iPlayer. He talks through BBC iPlayer. And will find the right Bing episode and will say, like, sore throat or lost hoppity, and it means he's like looking for someone or whatever.
How incredible! Like, how clever is that?
Incredible. It is incredible. I always say that neurotypicals would absolutely flounder and fail in a neurodivergent based world. Can you imagine? Because it would be that. We would have to talk through these things and find things really quickly and skip and learn, and like,
Yeah,
we would
Ethan can
absolutely
find
love
the
it and found her.
exact, yeah, like the exact, you know, like you can fast forward it ×2 or whatever and
Yeah.
find it. And he loves the camping episode where it goes, it's only Arlo, Bing. So that's on his AAC. And we do actually have a black cat, which looks a bit like Arlo. But he found, I think you have to hit like 3 or 4 buttons to get to camping on his AAC. And he presses camping because he wants to watch that, you know, and it's, yeah, it's sort of been incredible. But yeah, knowing he can read. So when we had the meeting with his new teacher, it's something that I wanted to ask, and I'd really be interested to hear what you would say as well. But just sort of how the classroom kind of set up looks, and if they know that sort of Ethan can count and Ethan can read, do you kind of set different activities? Sort of where how does that sort of look?
It's exactly that. Also in special, so it's kind of different. I do it for both because I've worked in a special school, and then now I work in a special class we're the only class in the whole school.
Okay.
So it looks kind of different. So where I work now, we've got aged 4 to 11, and we've just got one class of specialist provision, and we're attached to a mainstream school. So everybody of all abilities is in that one class. So we've had years with children working at just tracking something, so like 3 months level, in the same class as children taking their maths and English SATs, year 6 SATs, in the same class. So in that situation, every single child has a completely bespoke IEPs, lesson plans, lessons, and you kind of do that. I mean, God, we get experts at it. You'll just be really creative. Often special ed teachers are really creative because you just constantly have to think outside the box. So in one group activity, say we're building up a tower and knocking it down, one child will be doing a tally and making a graph as to what children knocked what down or whatever, or how long they'd be timing it, and then they'd make a graph over that. And the other child is learning more, so we're knocking down and they're asking for more. Another child is practicing fine motor skills and building up. Whilst another child is just giving fleeting attention, and that's their focus. So
brilliant.
You have to be so creative and just think, like, what does history look like for a child that's working at 4 months? It looks like looking in a mirror, because how do you know where you come from until you know who you are? So they're doing history with a mirror and deep pressure, whilst the others are learning about, I don't know, Nightingale and like the war and stuff. And that's kind of insane what we do in my class. But that means we need so many adults. So
I was going to say,
a very high adult ratio. At that point, when we had the 3-month cognitive and the year 6 cognitive, we were 1-to-1 plus teacher. So we had more adults in the room than children.
That's amazing.
Huge luxury. Now we have a little bit less because the parameters have closed in a little bit. So we actually, just for need of special ed provision, there's no way we will ever have a child that could do SATs again. I don't think, in my mind, just because there's such need. They'll always end up in mainstream, and we'll just support them in the inclusion class. Just because of how things are going. However, in my special education school, it's the whole school, so they can be much more specific about levels of children. And you might find that in Ethan's class there's a range of ages. There might be between 3 and 4 kind of years within one class, but there'll be a similar size, a similar sensory seeking kind of stuff, similar language skills, similar interests. They do try really hard to pair children of ability over age often. So then in my classes there's still complete differentiation still, because there's different special interests, there's different language skills, ways of working, ways of learning, but it's far less, I would say, than what I'm doing day to day. So for example, for reading, it might be that maybe the class is split into 3 groups, and Ethan is in the group that are using their AAC, reading a book, and they're matching the word to the book, for example. The other 2 groups in his class, one might be doing comprehension work if he's in the middle group, and the others are just doing the sensory story, and it's more about the feeling of the textures and modelling rather than actually. So there's probably kind of like 3 little things going on there, rather than it being bespoke for every single individual.
but that's
But you always get anomalies.
Yeah.
So it might be that Ethan is an anomaly in his class and then he needs something a little bit more bespoke. But the beauty of special education is that we can do that.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I'm a special education teacher and not mainstream, is because I know I can meet every child where they're at, and that does feel like a luxury as a teacher these days.
Lots of parents sort of in my position who have a child going into specialist school have probably had a negative experience sort of at a mainstream nursery where you're so used to their needs not being met and then not sort of being understood. So like that sounds incredible that you can just, and Ethan has a good ratio of sort of TAs to the teacher, and to know that they can truly support him and go down whichever path he's going is just so amazing.
I suppose all I would say was I've known children that can do everything that Ethan's doing at home, and that's what the parents were saying, like that they're having conversation skills. We're having two-way conversations at home and they're using all this language at home and they're reading at home. We weren't seeing it in school.
Yeah.
I think something about the environment, the noise, the lights, the other people, just
it's overwhelming.
They weren't completely relaxed and comfortable. They maybe didn't feel as safe. Whatever it was, the parents were doing really well. We just weren't doing as well at. So we weren't seeing it. So in that instance, it's just really important that parent and teacher communication is really strong, and that your relationship's really strong. And then maybe like you add some of what he's doing to his like evidence, like on that. I don't know if it's done through an iPad or photos or whatever. There'll be some way that you could kind of share that with him so that he's not held back. Because I've fallen trap of that before. If I haven't seen it, I just assume, and unless we're having a conversation about, oh no, they can do that, and also, I suppose it's also, yes, they can do that at home when they're regulated and in their safe environment. Actually, it would be very unfair for me to expect that in an environment, and vice versa, I suppose.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, our house is Ethan's sort of sanctuary kingdom, you know, so it's
his heaven, isn't it?
Yeah. So obviously he's regulated, he's comfortable, he's happy. But that's why I've had such joy as well with him having his AAC. And obviously, I don't want to put loads of pressure on Ethan to go in and kind of prove himself, but just by having it and showing that he can kind of use it, he can hopefully, the judgment kind of will be different maybe, and I think with Ethan, you know, the teacher said, I think Ethan will kind of keep them on her toes a bit. So for example, they had elastic bands, which I can't quite see how it's going to work, but round the taps to stop them turning on. Ethan just went up, picked up something that looked like a cup, went up to the tap, turned it on, had a drink, made himself a drink, and like he just cracks on, and he's only, he's 5 in October, but he's wearing like 7 to 8 clothes. Like he's going to be tall and strong. And when we went to view his specialist nursery, they kept trying to hide. I think it was just like a tea towel or something, but kept trying to hide it from Ethan. And towards the end, he was pretty much stood on a chair on top of a table to get there. Ethan, and obviously he might in the future, but the sort of masking side of things, Ethan doesn't really do kind of currently. He just goes in full steam ahead as Ethan.
So pure.
Yeah, and I think, and obviously, you know, time will tell, but I do think Ethan is ready for school now. You know, and he wants.
You feel it, don't you?
Yeah.
And I feel like the same happens in year 6. Actually, you kind of know when they're ready for the next, or whatever, or the next age, or the next stage, or whatever. You kind of feel it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really great that he's ready for school. Like the next challenge, I suppose, to really to test out in the world everything he's learned at home.
Yeah, and he loves other kids as well. You know, Ethan loves like being on a trampoline or a bouncy castle, and he has a time of his life by himself. But when other kids come on, he stands at the side in absolute hysterics at other kids bouncing. And then the other kids kind of notice Ethan and sort of play up to it and kind of fake fall and stuff. And like Ethan's just loving.
So slapstick is going to be alright with.
Yeah.
That he sounds so fun.
So I think he'll. And like Ethan, obviously like sort of lots of autistic children, but he likes his kind of own routine. He knows what's happening. So actually we've had the sort of transition days and we've got one more coming, but he's pretty much going, 9 till 3 right from the start. Because actually if we picked him up from lunchtime the first week, he'd always want to be picked up from lunchtime then. And I think, and we know as Ethan's parents, we're also sort of walking distance to a specialist school, which again, is sort of lucky. So we know that he's there, but we can be there in 10 minutes. But I do touch wood, but I really do think he'll...
Sounds like a really great transition as well, which is really good, isn't it?
Yeah, because we drive
You
past
feel confident
it.
that he knows it.
Yeah.
He's
Like, is he going to be in school? Yeah.
And then I suppose then it's like the 6-week break, isn't it? Just keeping those like looking at photos and whatever videos you've taken.
Yeah, we can drive past it and kind of point it out, and we've added the school like to his AAC, so you can sort of press that and stuff. But yeah, I think he'll really kind of really settle in there. I'm really excited to him.
Like, have you got any other questions, or like you're just wondering about how things work?
Yeah, one thing I wonder was just sort of how long, and this is potentially sort of how long is a piece of string question, but how long do you say it takes for you to truly kind of understand the child that has joined your class in September?
That's a great question.
And obviously they change, you know, even changes in front of our eyes sometimes.
Yeah,
what do you kind of...
Shorter, the more information parents give us. Because if we don't know their special interests, their favourite toys, what certain phrases mean, what triggers, it takes a hell of a lot longer, because we spend all those first weeks just learning that. So if the transition has been successful and parents' communication is really successful, and we already know what makes them happy, what makes them anxious, what triggers are, we can start then from the next step, because sometimes that takes 2 or 3 weeks. Then we can spend actually usually 2 or 3 weeks with intensive interaction, learning their stims. They'll very quickly tell us what they enjoy doing, because they'll be showing us, and we can use those as an opportunity to connect with them, motivate them, build into lessons, that kind of thing. So I'd say 2 or 3 weeks usually. That is made way shorter if we've got a good, solid, two-way communication with parents. And even like if you're given like homeschool communication books, whether that's done through email or written or whatever, it's really great if that's used. And even if you're like, oh, we didn't do anything over the weekend, like just say, because they might not be able to tell us as full as you can, even though they can use their AAC. And it's a great opportunity for us to initiate conversation. Because you could send photos, that would be awesome. Like just anything that we can get to know the child and let them know that we're linked. Because typically, they like home separate, school separate. And actually, it's quite nice to blur the lines sometimes and show them, you know, this is important to us too. Like we want to know that you got a new puppy or that your cat had kittens or whatever. And I know that's another thing I love about special ed school actually, is that you can ask any mainstream teacher and they will be able to tell you what level the child is at, as in like academic level. I can't, but I can tell you what their cats are called, what their siblings are called, when their birthday is, you know, what their dad's favourite football team is. To me, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and that's lovely, and that matters so much. Like to me as a parent, you know, knowing that you genuinely care about my son, and you care about what his hobbies are and what he loves, but you also care about his learning and communicating with us. And because I think as a parent, when you've been so used to kind of fighting for kind of every service and whatever, you know, you're used to being sort of that parent sort of thing. And I think actually it's nice to hear that actually once you've hopefully done lots of the fighting, we can just kind of settle a bit and be like, actually, I'm not being that parent by talking to the teacher. It's just
we also never mind that parent.
Exactly.
Because we also acknowledge the fight that has had to come. And that is absolutely understandable. And we are also, I hope, well, I am anyway, I suppose I can't speak to everybody, I'm absolutely okay, and I do say this to parents, being like, actually, we don't use that word anymore. Like the other day, for example, I was talking to a parent at the gate, and I said, learning difficulty. Like it just came out of my mouth, and she was like, it's not difficulty, it's learning disability. I was like, oh God, yeah, of course. I never mind that. Please keep saying that. Please keep us learning and being educated. Because like you said at the beginning, and you said it so perfectly, you are an expert of your own child. So yes, we might have worked with this many children, this many professionals. We're not an expert of your child. Like, absolutely tell us,
Yeah,
you know,
and
absolutely educate us, Lord, please.
yeah,
Please
and
do.
there's so much to learn, isn't there? All the time, things are so like Ethan's AAC. I think the special school he's going to, they hadn't seen an AAC.
Wow.
So I kind of have made sure it's gone with him to every day and said,
Pioneer.
because I want it to be Ethan comes with his AAC.
It has to.
And we've seen some wonderful things of like Ethan. He loves bye-bye from being it's the bye-bye box.
Oh yeah, the bye-bye box. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, yeah. Well, I know the bye-bye
Yeah, so
box.
we've had it bye-bye, and he can say bye-bye when we leave. And to see that as a parent of a non-speaking child, to see my child say bye-bye, and then for people to look at Ethan instead of me and actually say, and say bye to Ethan,
Yeah.
and it's just given him a voice to kind of take with him, which is just so brilliant. But yeah, what I was going to say, I think, is that with AAC, they have like pupil specific sort of training. So they will get training on AAC now Ethan is going.
And more children will benefit from that.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, Ethan is not the only one that will benefit from AAC.
Yeah.
I can tell you that for
sure. And I sent them the link. We use TD Snap. And they have like a free license for schools. So I sent it to them and said, you can get it on your whiteboard. And as you said, every child would probably love to press it and everything else.
It doesn't hurt. So even if a child, that isn't their choice to communicate, like, it doesn't hurt to model. Yeah. Especially if it's linked with the symbols that you're using in class. Yeah. I've just seen a message from a parent whose pupil is actually starting in my class in September, and they've said, should I write a list to tell you guys about my child? So yes, I send home, and this is relevant for everybody, I send home a happiness audit. It's on my Google Drive, but anyone that wants it, I'll send it to you. And it's basically a what makes your child happy audit. It's the first thing we give. So it's what sensory experiences make your children happy, what foods make your children happy, what environments make your children happy, what people make your children happy, what, just what does heaven look like for your child? Because then we can refer to that. If we want to support a child coming in from the car, or I don't know, anything throughout the day, we can look at the happiness audit and think, oh yeah, actually this environment is not ideal for them. Let's dim the lights. Let's put on rock music. Whatever it is that makes them happy. It just might help. It just gives us a clue. So for this one parent, you're lucky enough to have me in September. I will send that to you anyway. But for any other parent or teacher that thinks they would benefit from that, I'll send it to you. So I'll save this obviously to my grid and comment below, and I will just make sure that's an automatic. And
as like from the perspective of a parent, to know that you do that, and again that you genuinely care and are going to be supporting them with what makes them happy, like, it's just so incredible to hear. It's so brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah. So if you're teacher or parent, I think it's how can I. It's currency. Happiness is currency in a special ed class. Like, how can I assume that a child like Ethan will want to join our group area if it's not motivating to him and doesn't hit those buttons, Whereas if it would be as easy enough as be like, oh, okay, 3 of our kids like cats. Yeah. Okay, awesome. I'm going to pick a story the first week about cats then. Like, it's so easy once you know.
And like Ethan loves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fisher. At the moment, like he loves counting it and doing it all on his ASC. And like if we told you that, and you could think you could meet Ethan, and that could be the song you sing.
Exactly that. Or in maths, like when we pick the music song, we can, because we do choice boards, we can just make sure that's an option. Yeah. Because without knowing that was his favourite song, we might even not have that as an option. And then even if he could understand the choice board or whatever, we're limiting him. Yeah. So the more we know, the more opportunities, the better. And going back to your question of how long does it take to get to know a child, the more we know, we can build those connections, that trust.
Yeah. And actually, it surprised me how quickly you said, but that's amazing. And obviously, you're with them for such a long period of time in the day.
And our whole job is to get to know them. Like those first weeks are literally, that is what we do. It is building trust. Yeah. It's a lot of intensive interaction just to start building that trust, share the same language, and getting them to know the class, within their own, but not trying to stretch them too far. It's a real weird balance.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when you've got them all doing it at once.
Yeah.
But the more we know about a child, the better. Don't think that sending him in with 4 A4 pages of handwritten information about him is too much. If you can't do that, don't. That's fine. But if you want to, don't think, oh my God, I'm that. Please don't, because I'd rather too much information than not at all. And even if I can't read it that first day because it's a bit hectic, if it's in front of his book, stapled in there, at least we can refer to it.
Definitely. I think that one more question I was going to ask, actually, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Was just sort of what we can, is there anything we can do kind of during the summer? So for all the parents who have their children starting at specialist school, to just kind of support Ethan a little bit. So we know, I think, on one of his goals, it's to sort of be able to put his coat on and off and things like that. Is that kind of useful to do with him? Or
I suppose it depends on, like, some of them might give you specific goals, like some of them to work on specific things. I would say just really focus on the transition photos or videos that you've got. So if next time you visit, video him in the space in the classroom if you're allowed to, or at least take photos of the adults and key workers he's working with, the entrance door, like really important like steps of how he's going to get there. I think it's probably the most important thing, because your job is to get him through the door, and that's sometimes harder. I mean, it sounds like Nathan's doing brilliantly, but for some parents, sometimes just getting them into the car dressed in a different uniform. There is so much. So I think focus on that. Focus on practicing uniform wearing, on and off, no pressure. New shoes, practice wearing new shoes, because sometimes they're a bit hard and horrible, aren't they? So wearing new shoes without any pressure of going anywhere. Make it a bit of a fun game, maybe. Practice the car journey, parking in the car park and then going home again. You know, all those things. Actually, that's probably the most important thing, because your job ends at the gate, and then over summer we are thinking about from the gate, right? Okay, what's learning going to look like? But if you can get them to the gate on time, like wearing their uniform, whatever it is, that is awesome. That is awesome.
Brilliant. Okay. And it's so good to hear as well, you saying that our job ends and then you take over. I think, you know, for us, we've had a really funny kind of childcare history of like nursery not meeting his needs and stuff. So to just know that he's going to be somewhere where he's fully supported, he's understood, he's accepted, and his happiness is the main goal. You know, just so brilliant to just be looking forward to that and just sending him kind of safely sort of on his way.
And the more prepped he is, the less anxious he'll feel and the better day he'll have.
Definitely.
Yeah, and if you've practiced over the summer and you're really concerned about, I don't know, like I've heard some awful things about some schools making children wear shirts and ties and I don't know, specific things. Like some schools do. Like, it is okay as a parent to voice your concerns, because you're the expert of your child. If you feel like them wearing a shirt is going to hinder them from even entering the building, in my mind, that's exclusion.
Definitely.
And it's absolutely okay to voice that and to keep fighting for that. For me, I'm happy, well, my head teacher hopefully isn't watching. I'm happy if kids turn up in their pyjamas. I couldn't care less. If they're through the gate and they're happy and regulated, I'll work with it.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
But
hopefully, I think probably as a parent, I probably expect specialist schools to be a bit more lenient with that. But as you said, if there's ones that are kind of forcing,
not always. No, not always. And also, like, sometimes we want children. Sometimes it helps having uniform because then they know it's a school day or a home day. You know, like for some children, it's actually very important. So often we kind of go for a mixture of, we have a white t-shirt rather than a white shirt, and they wear the school jumper and they wear jogging bottoms. Like that kind of thing is quite typical in our class. So they are part of the school. They've got the logo. But it's a little bit, but I mean, it's so school, it really is school specific. Some other schools wouldn't. It's just up schools. But also, if your gut feeling says that is hindering your child from entering the building, I would say that's an easy fix, isn't it? Come on. But maybe that says more about me than.
Well, no, the worry if you can't get past that with a school, it
would be a red flag, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Definitely.
I would say.
Definitely.
yes, so lots of people are talking about the happiness audit. Yes, if you want the happiness audit, just comment below when this is on the grid, and that will be sent to you. And then maybe the leaflet as well.
Yeah.
Are you all right? Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I want it.
If we maybe collaborate on this live, and then when they comment below, I don't know, they send it, or maybe I add something to the caption about how to get in touch with you. I don't know. What would you rather?
Yeah, and I'd very happily. As I said, there's 800 odd now, like across the UK, where they've gone to kind of parents who run like support groups, or they've gone to like health visitors or portage or anything. Yeah, and I'd post them or I'd email them, sort of whatever works best.
So then, if you guys follow Spinning World of Autism, then reach out. Well, one, follow, because it's such a joy to watch Ethan's journey, and I'm so pleased that I started following like from the start of his schooling, because I just know that in 10 years' time I'm gonna be like, oh, do you remember when he started school?
Yeah, I know. It's going to be so nice
lovely being at this end of the journey.
Yeah.
Because I love I follow lots of parents as well, and some of them, they're teenagers or whatever. I'm like I look back at photos, I'm like, oh, they've come so far. But it's really lovely to like follow it with you, and you're so open and honest about your journey, and yeah, you're so encouraging and supporting and so positive. You're such a light, I think, for teachers as well as parents. Actually, I know you probably have a lot of parents on your thing, but I find it really useful as a teacher to be a better advocate, a better support for my parents. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I do try so hard to respond to everybody as well. You know, I've been doing like screen recordings of like, this is how you add this word or do this. Obviously, as you know, Instagram sometimes refreshes all your messages, doesn't it? And it reads them all without you knowing. And
yes.
But to the best of my knowledge, I try so hard to support everyone, because I was that parent reaching out, 2 years ago.
Yeah. Which is a lot of pressure, I have to say. I know it's 8 o'clock, but no, just you're no good to anyone if you're burnt out.
Yeah, and
so it's a balance, and I find the same, because sometimes the messages you're receiving, I'm sure they're similar to you, are really emotive and really desperate, and I think I'm not in the headspace to answer that now. I'm going to save it, I'm going to unread it, and I'm just going to wait until I'm ready to answer that properly, because I don't want to rush this. It's a big responsibility putting yourself out there on social media, especially within this space, I think. And I feel like we're probably both in a similar space in that, putting ourselves out there like that. Yeah,
and obviously the messages you're getting from lots of people, they're probably burnt out as well, and they're at peak stress and
desperate.
Yeah. And like on my flyer, I have got a little bit about self-care, and I almost didn't put it on there, because to me, when I'm peak stressed and lowest mental health, if someone says to me,
so true,
I've got to punch them in the face. And
it's so true. But have you thought about breathing?
Or have you tried yoga? But it's so important, I think, having gone through so many things and whatever, and self-care can be cleaning your teeth, sort of thing. It doesn't have to be going on a spa retreat week thing. But I thought it has to be on there, because at the end of the day, it is so important. You know, I wouldn't be able to learn anything that I need to for Ethan if I was sort of on my knees. So I have put it on there, and hopefully people will kind of take it the right way. But
and I'm sure if you didn't reply straight away to some people, or didn't reply at all, they would understand, and that it's more important that you, well, first of all, are the best person you can be for you, and then secondly, you're the best mum that you can be to Ethan, and then the best partner you can be to your husband, and then the best advocate on social media. And I think it's, and I'm guilty of this too. This is for me as well. I'm saying this for me, because it's sometimes really hard to find the balance, because you care so much, and I care, and it does burn you out, because I care about every child that's in every message, and it sometimes is really heavy, because I care and want to fix it for everyone, and sometimes I need to learn my own limitations, and sometimes it is just enough to say, like, I see you, I hear you, this is a video I filmed before for someone else, I hope it's enough.
Or sometimes I know this person, message them, or
exactly that. So that's a message to you, I suppose, like social media, just look after yourself, because you're good to no one if you're burnt out. And what you share is so amazing, that actually already just you sharing your feed without personal messages and things is everything, is enough. but I know I can
and I think
see that you.
and like both of it, like being neurodivergent, or the way you can like hyper focus, and I have a huge sort of strong sense of justice and must do this, and that can be a huge strength, but also can lead to burnout, can't it? Because you obviously you have to
Totally.
stop.
I totally relate to that, and also the emotions you feel for someone is so strong. You're like, I can't leave them. I've been that person. You know, what would it mean if I don't message them? You know, and it is really important, isn't it? It's just a huge responsibility, isn't it?
Definitely.
Putting yourself out there on this, I suppose. And I suppose that maybe it's about us getting together, all the people that are sharing within this space and holding each other for that. So maybe I can't answer that right now, but actually this person might be able to, and kind of sharing the responsibility of that in that way could be really important, because we're all stronger together, aren't we? And I suppose that's what the beauty of these kind of lives is it's holding each other up, isn't it, and giving them that.
I say that exact phrase actually at the bottom of so many posts that I've done, that we're all stronger together in terms of the fighting, in terms of supporting, in terms of the emotional bit, because everything I share, however niche or unique I think it is, someone has been there and someone will send me the Amazon link to buy that or do that. True. Everything I share, you know, even if it's one person actually, because it is really unique or whatever. Yeah, that just helps so much.
It's so true, and you start this journey thinking, I've got a lot to share, and I'm actually learning way more than I'm sharing. Like, I'm sharing a lot, I know that, but my God, am I learning way more than I'm sharing.
Definitely.
Which is just so amazing. That's what the best thing about Instagram and social media. Like, it's a devil in lots of ways, but my God, is it good at getting people, like-minded people together, and it has a strong impact when used in a positive way, like you're doing.
And I learned so much from families in America and speech therapists and everything else. And
you'd never have access to otherwise, would you? You would never have access to that.
Yeah, and like my newsletter, actually, more people signed up from America. So like my best opens are in like California and stuff, and that's great. And I sort of bonded with people that have the same views as me, and it doesn't matter where they are. And I see some wonderful journeys and I learned so much from everybody else. And it's Instagram gives you that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Stronger together in a local sense, so like school to parent sense, but also stronger together in a world sense as well. I think is a really lovely thing to end this live on, actually. Stronger together. Laura, thank you so much. It's been such a joy. I know we haven't even answered any questions. It's the first live. We've just kind of like just chatted. Maybe we should have chatted before we started. It's really important. I don't even know if you know how important you sharing is, actually. I think there'll be parents watching this and parents seeing your feed. This is such a comfort to know that they are not alone. It's so important and cannot be overlooked. So thank you so much for putting yourself out there. Everybody go and follow Spinning World of Autism and your journey. You're doing such great work.
Thank you. It's so lovely to finally, we've been chatting for ages, haven't we? We're fairly localish.
Face to face. Yeah, we are. We will meet in person once, because we aren't that far away. Because I'm far away from everyone else, but I'm not too far from you.
No, exactly. Exactly, that would be great. Brilliant. Wonderful. Well, so lovely to chat to you.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.